Hello, and welcome to the 68th episode of Scripture in a Year, hosted by Saints Peter and Paul Orthodox Church in the Albanian Archdiocese of the OCA. Today's reading is from the second book of Kingdoms, or 2 Samuel, chapters 1 through 4. And it happened after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, that David stayed for 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from the camp of the people of Saul, with his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he came to David, he fell to the ground and prostrated himself. And David said to him, "Where have you come from?" He answered, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." Then David said to him, "What is this? Tell me." And he answered, "The people fled from the battle, but many of the people were cut down and are dead. Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also." So David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and Jonathan his son are dead?" Then the young man who told him said, "As I happened by chance to be on Mount Gilboa, there was Saul leaning on his spear, and the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me. And I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' So I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' He said to me again, 'Please stand over me and kill me, for a terrible darkness has seized me, for all my life still remains in me.' So I stood over him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I brought them here to my lord." Therefore David took a hold of his own clothes and tore them, and all the men who were with him tore their clothes. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening, for Saul and for Jonathan his son, for the people of Judah and for the house of Israel, because they were killed by the sword. Then David said to the young man who told him, "Where are you from?" He answered, "I am the son of a resident foreigner, an Amalekite." So David said to him, "How was it you were not afraid to put forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Then David called one of the young men and said, "Go near and deal with him." And he struck him so that he died. And David said to him, "Your blood is on your own head, for your own mouth spoke against you, saying, 'I killed the Lord's anointed.'" Then David uttered this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son, and he told them to teach the children of Judah. Indeed, it is written in the book of the righteous, "Set up a monument, Israel, over the dead on the high places of your slain. How the mighty have fallen. Do not tell it in Gath. Do not proclaim it in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Let the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. You mountains of Gilboa, let no dew, no rain fall upon you, nor the fields of the first fruit. For in that place the shield of the mighty was dishonored. The shield of Saul was not anointed with olive oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not return in vain, nor in vain was the sword of Saul returned. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and handsome, were not separated entirely. So beautiful in their life that in their death they were not separated entirely, swifter than the eagles and more powerful than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, clothing you in the scarlet linens of your world, bringing to you the golden apparel. How the mighty have fallen, O Jonathan, dying on your high places. I am grieved for you, my brother Jonathan. You were most pleasant to me. Your love for me was to be admired, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the warriors of war perish." It happened after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go up to one of the cities of Judah?" And the Lord told him, "Go up." David asked, "Where shall I go up?" And he said, "To Hebron." So David went up to Hebron. He went with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelite woman, and Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. The men went up with him, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. Then the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, "The men of Jabesh Gilead buried Saul." So David sent messengers to the rulers of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, "You are blessed of the Lord, for you have shown this mercy to your Lord upon Saul, the Lord's anointed, and you have buried him and his son Jonathan. And now may the Lord work with you in mercy and truth. Indeed, I will repay you for this kindness, since you made this happen. Now therefore let your hands be strengthened, and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead. In addition, the house of Judah anointed me king over them." But Abner the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and brought him from the camp to Mahanaim. He made him king over Gilead, over the Asherites, over Jezreel, over Ephraim, over Benjamin, over all Israel. Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned for 2 years. But he did not reign over the house of Judah, who followed David. The days David reigned in Hebron as king over the house of Judah were 7 years and 6 months. Now Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon, and Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out from Hebron to meet them at the well of Gibeon. The two groups sat down, one on one side of the well and the other on the other side of the well. Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men stand up and duel before us." Joab said, "Arise." 12 young men of Benjamin, followers of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David arose to duel. By the hand, each of them grasped the head of his opponent, and by the hand his sword went into the side of his opponent. They fell at the same moment. Thereafter they called the name of that place the Well of Treachery, which is in Gibeon. The battle that day was very fierce, and Abner and the men of Israel were beaten before the servants of David. The 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Asahel was as fleet of foot as a wild gazelle. Asahel pursued Abner, and not to deviate from his purpose, he turned neither to the right hand nor to the left. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Are you Asahel?" He answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay hold on one of the young men, and take his armor for yourself." But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. So Abner said again to Asahel, "Stay away from me, lest I strike you to the ground. How then could I lift up my face to Joab? Return to where you came. Return to Joab your brother." However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore Abner smote him in the loins with the end of his spear, and the shaft of the spear came out of his back. There he fell, and there he died. And it happened that everyone who came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood in silence. Joab and Abishai also pursued Abner. The sun was going down when they came to the hill of Ammah, which is east of Giah, on the road through the desert of Gibeon. Here the sons of Benjamin gathered behind Abner and joined to meet in battle. They took their position on top of a hill. Abner called to Joab and said, "Shall the sword devour until victory is won? Do you truly not know that in the end it will be better? How long until you tell the people to turn back from pursuing their brethren?" And Joab said, "As the Lord lives, if you did not talk in the morning, perhaps then each person should not be pursuing his brother afterward." So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood back and did not pursue Israel, nor did they fight any more. Then Abner and his men went away toward the west all that night, crossed the Jordan, and went all morning and came to the camp. And Joab returned from pursuing Abner. And when he gathered all the people, 19 servants of David and Asahel were missing. But the servants of David smote 360 of the sons of Benjamin, the men of Abner. Then they took up Asahel and buried him in his father's tomb in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men traveled with him throughout the night, and came to Hebron in the daybreak. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but the house of David grew continually stronger, and the house of Saul grew steadily weaker. And sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Jezreelite woman. His second, Chileab, by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. The third, Absalom, the son of Maach, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. The fourth, Adoniah, the son of Haggith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And sixth, Ithream, by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David in Hebron. Now while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was strengthening his hold on the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, said to Abner, "Why did you go into my father's concubine?" Then Abner became very angry at Mephibosheth's words, and Abner said to him, "Am I a dog's head? Today I brought about mercy on the house of Saul your father, his brothers and his friends, and have not shifted loyalties to the house of David. and you on this very day seek fault against me on behalf of an unrighteous wife. God do thus to Abner and more also, as if the Lord swore an oath to David. So do I not to him this day, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and set up the throne of David over Israel and Judah, from Dan to Beersheba. And Mephibosheth could not answer Abner another word, because he feared him. Then Abner immediately sent messengers to David in Thalam, saying, Make your covenant with me, and my hand shall be with you to bring the house of Israel to you. And David said, Good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you. You shall not see my face unless you bring Michal, the daughter of Saul, when you come to see me. So David sent messengers to Mephibosheth, Saul's son, saying, Give me my wife Michal, whom I received for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Mephibosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. Her husband, weeping behind her, went along with her to Bahurim. So Abner said to him, Go, return. And he returned. Now Abner communicated with the elders of Israel, saying, In time past you were seeking for David to be king over you. Now then do it, for the Lord has spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save Israel from the hand of the Philistines, and from the hand of all their enemies. And Abner spoke in the hearing of Benjamin. Then Abner also went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron everything that seemed good to the eyes of Israel, and the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron. And David made a feast for Abner and the men with him. Then Abner said to David, I will arise and go, and gather all Israel to my lord the king, and I will make a covenant with you, and you may reign over all that your soul desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. At that moment the servants of David and Joab returned from their journey, and brought large quantities of spoils with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the troops with him had come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he sent him away, and he went in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, What is this you ordered? Behold, Abner came to you? Why did you send him away that he departed in peace? Or do you not perceive the evil of Abner the son of Ner, who came to deceive you, to know your going out and your coming in, and know all that you do? And Joab went from David's presence and sent messengers after Abner, who brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David did not know of this. When Abner returned to Hebron, Joab turned him aside at the gate to speak with him privately. There an ambush awaited. Joab stabbed him in the loins, and Abner died for the blood of Asahel, Joab's brother. After David heard this, he said, Of the blood of Abner the son of Ner I am forever innocent before the Lord, and so is my kingdom. Let it rest on Joab's head, and on all his father's house, and let there never be a time in the house of Joab when it will be found free of one suffering from gonorrhea, or a leper, or one that leans on his staff, or falls by the sword, or lacks bread. And Joab and Abishai, his brother, had lain in wait continually for Abner, because he killed their brother Asahel at Gibeon after the struggle. Then David said to Joab and to all the people with him, Tear your clothes, gird yourself with sackcloth, and mourn for Abner. And King David followed the coffin. So they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept over the grave, and all the people wept over Abner. And the king sang a lament over Abner and said, Should Abner die according to the death of Nabal? Your hands were not bound, nor were your feet held in chains, for Nabal was brought forward on different grounds. You fell before children of injustice. All the people assembled to weep for him. And when all the people came to persuade David to eat food while it was still day, David took an oath, saying, God do so and more to me if I eat bread or anything else before the sun goes down. All the people noticed, and all were pleased, as the king did many pleasing things before the people. On that day all the people and all Israel came to realize the king was not intent on killing Abner, the son of Ner. Then the king said to his servants, Do you not know that a great prince has fallen today in Israel? Though I am governing as the anointed king, on this very day I am a kinsman, and to me these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are more unyielding than I am. The Lord shall repay the evildoer according to his malice. When Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, heard that Abner had died while in Hebron, The strength of his hands grew weaker, and all the men of Israel were low in spirits. Now Saul's son, Mephibosheth, had 2 men who were captains over the troops. The name of one was Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, the sons of Benjamin. For Beeroth was considered as one of the sons of Benjamin. And the Beerothites fled to Gittaim and sojourned there until this day. Jonathan, a son of Saul, had a 5-year-old son who was lame in his feet. When word came from Jezreel about Saul and his son Jonathan, his nurse picked up the son and fled, and as she ran to leave, she fell, and his foot became lame. Mephibosheth was his name. And Rechab and Baanah, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, set out, and by the time the hottest part of the day arrived, they were as far as the house of Mephibosheth. And he was napping on the bed at midday. And behold, the doorkeeper of the house winnowed the wheat, and he too napped. Thus the presence of the brothers Rechab and Baanah went unnoticed. While Mephibosheth was asleep on his bed in his bedroom, they entered and struck him dead and beheaded him. Then they took his head and journeyed the whole night on the road going west. They brought the head of Mephibosheth to David at Hebron. They said to the king, "Behold, the head of Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your life. Today the Lord executed for my lord the king's vengeance upon his enemies, even on Saul your enemy and on his seed." But David answered Rechab and Baanah, his brother, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, saying to them, "As the Lord lives, who redeemed my life from all adversity, when someone told me, 'Look, Saul is dead,' believing he brought me good news, I arrested him, the one who thought I would give him a reward, and he was executed in Ziklag. And now wicked men kill a righteous person in his house on his bed. Now by reason of your direct involvement, I will charge you with this murder. I will have you utterly removed from the land." And David gave a command to his servants, and they killed them. They cut off their hands and feet, and they hung them by the pool in Hebron. But the head of Mephibosheth was buried in the tomb of Abner, son of Ner. Here ends the reading for today.